You're a Kenyan in beautiful Rift Valley region. Foreigners have come into your land, stealing your livestock, raping your women, and they're building a railway line from Kenya to Uganda so they can use your labor to export their produce. So mumeharibika, mumejam, muna fight na wase na this is the story of the Nandi people of Kenya. Nandi people were actually almost successful in every attack they waged against the British. So before we continue into that amazing story of the Nandi resistance, nataka kuintroduce huyu Empress hapa, anaitwa Josina Modhemba Machel. Modhemba is actually also a Gikuyu name here in our country. But at Liberating Minds, we are a pan-Africanist. It matters to us Kenya ili happen in other African countries kwa sababu hii sio story ya Kenya peke yake, ni story ya Afrika. Vile walami walikam, wakatudu noma, na wanaendelea kutudu noma, na take the effort of Africa kujitoa kwa hii story yote. Josina Modhemba is a heroine from Mozambique. She fought for women's rights and encouraged other women to join the war. She died at 25 without seeing her dream of an independent Mozambique. Dem alikuwa warrior. Cheki na gani yake hapo at 25 years of age. How many 25-year-olds would be in battle right now fighting for the liberation of their country? So salute to Mozambique. We celebrate all African heroes and all guerrilla fighters.
The resistance ya Nandi in the Rift Valley region is another beautiful chapter.
Beautiful.
Yeah, resistance in Kenya.
Yeah.
Fierce resistance.
So walikuwa wazi.
Ilikuwa ni noma sana.
Yeah.
Ilikuwa ni noma sana. Unajua wengi wanajua kuitalera Arab Samoa.
Yes.
Hiyo chapter ya Nandi resistance. But also the tactics now zenye zimetumika na Nandi because they waged hiyo nini for a long time. I think combined ni around 11 years. The resistance. Railway
Kenya Uganda
take time.
Wali sabotage construction ya hiyo railway like kabisa like Brito hawezi construct ndio ile noma wanapatana nayo wakijaribu. Haikuwa rahisi hata kidogo. Unajua ase walikuwa naelewa hii kitu ina constructiwa ndio watutumie kulima wa exportingi our nini our produce the resources.
Yes.
And then I think there was a prophecy of this long snake that will pass through the Nandi land, and even
I think in a previous episode when we were discussing the resistance in Central, we might have mentioned or if not nani wayaki wahinga akiambia the Kikuyu people about Mugo Kiviro.
The prophecy
ya walami wakikam. So pia ilikuwa foretold.
Yes.
Ilikuwa foretold and the battles ilikuwa noma sana.
Yes.
The tactics used, small guerrilla units, zilikuwa key sana kusustain the resistance.
Must I break down unamaanisha nini ukisema small guerrilla units? Me I really want people to understand this struggle vile ilikuwa.
So guerrilla units ni crews za kuattack.
Ni kama tumejipanga mtu 10
za kwa.
Ama mbao ama 15 ka unit tu.
Ka unit kakua na attack.
Alafu atupigani hivi openly. Sisi tunakujanga tunawattack. Nyinyi hata mko rada mjui tutakuja lini, mjui kama leo tunakaa mama mkam tunajipanga tu vile tutakam ku attack.
The same thing guerrilla warfare.
The same Mau. Yes.
I think also Kwame Nkrumah aliandika kitabu I think a whole book ya guerrilla warfare. The tactical.
Just remember the guerrilla song.
Africa. So guerrilla tactics na warfare ina go beyond negotiations nini. So ni war. Lazima tupate mbaya. Lazima tupate uhuru wetu.
Yeah.
Kwa hii resistance ya Nandi and the Rift Valley people. Kuna character fulani ana-emerge. Tumemdiscuss kwa previous episode. Tulimpatia jina mnyama. Anaitwa Richard Menetsage. Ni alimada kuitalel wakiwa na squad yake. But before tufike tu kwa nini walifanya vita paka uwe kuitalel because walio kuitalel when they were negotiating wanajaribu kutafuta a peaceful solution to the ongoing conflict.
Yeah, because Mabrito walikuwa wanataka niaje manze we really want to maliza construction ya railway ndio tuende tukonke Western Kenya. So wakasemaje, tuite hawa wasee for peace negotiation. Let me read what Maina Zagen wrote uko majuu. There have been signs lately that the Nandi are becoming restless. I hear that Koitalel is busy plotting against the government and that various meetings take place regularly among Nandi leaders to discuss means by which they can rid themselves of British rule. He warned his superiors that if they did not move fast to crush Koitalel, he would weld the Nandi into a formidable fighting force, which in a few years might challenge our position in East Africa. Hiyo inachua say wako interested in Kenya peke yake. They also wanted Uganda and other parts. So Maina Zagen calls for a peace meeting between himself and Koitalel. But these people wako na trickery sana. Juu walitrick Koitalel. Walimwambia hii ni meeting ya equals. Si mmetupiga mmetuonesha noma. Si tunataka peace. So come with just yourself and I will come peke yangu. Maina Zagen anaambia Koitalel, mimi nitakam solo, wewe pia come solo.
Yes.
Come to nego tubonge story.
Yeah.
Listen, Maina Zagen writes, had already suggested that we should meet and I sent him word by the government interpreter that I should be with him on the morning of October 19th to discuss this matter. He asked me to come only with 5 men unarmed and he would have only 5 men unarmed on his side. Ilikuwa 5 men unarmed wote.
Yeah.
Apparently, Maina Zagen did not honor the agreement. Ufala alikam na 80 men. 80. 80.
Akambia 75 kwanza waji.
Akambia 75 nyinyi kaeni ukiona tu kidogo hivi anaenda kuni-attack. Immediately kill this Koitalel.
Yeah.
So Koitalel, again, this goes to show Africans walikuwa na honor na respect. He actually went with just 5 men who were actually unarmed.
Koitalel is not the first one actually to do it. Wayaki alifanya hivyo.
Yes.
So venye umesema.
So ni history inajirudia.
That ilikuwa they always walikuwa natafuta if kama tunaweza pata solution well and good, but ukikataa pia ni noma.
Yeah. So huyu Maina Zagen with his 80 men, 75 had concealed weapons. Hata mwas, imagine hata negotiations zilikuwa zimeanza. Ile kuenda kushake hands hivi. Mmoja ashamshoot mguu.
Yes.
Unaona? Like it was we were tricked. Our people were tricked.
The trickery nature
of our enemy as a people.
Yeah.
Kwa sababu hizi tricks zimeendelea hadi wa leo, by the way. So I took with me Sammy Butler and 80 men with a machine gun, leaving Sammy with 75 men and machine gun. I advanced to meet Koitalel with 5 men. Before going down to meet Koitalel, I had one butler to open fire at once if he saw us being overwhelmed. Wait a minute. So he's also afraid of Koitalel and his 5 unarmed men. Because amesema, ukiona wametu overwhelm, open fire at once. Koitalel and his war council members knew nothing about this murderous conspiracy and were unarmed. In the process of shaking hands with the invaders, one of the invaders instantly shot Koitalel in the hip. Vile ameshutua hivi anaenda kudedi, Maina Zagen akammalizia. Papa!
Maina Zagen
na unyama yake angewacha.
Angewacha hii chance impite.
Yeah. So that was how Koitalel was murdered. But again, that was not the end of the resistance of the Nandi people. Having completed their murderous mission, they returned to their base at Kamtumo, singing their English national anthem. Like to the British people, this was such a successful day in the battle. And they're singing their national anthem like, we are those people.
Yes, of course, the death ya Koitalel ilikuwa na negative impact.
Yeah.
When you lose such a leader, mwenye amepigana for long, in a damage morale.
It also happened to Mau when they lost Kimathi. Yeah.
And perhaps inatupe an opportunity to analyze these struggles further whenever they are centered around one individual. Damage hiyo ni nini? Because tumeona again and again, not only history ya Kenya, but also Africa. So, you kill Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso.
Then there's no another Sankara.
You kill Chris Hani in South Africa. Then that struggle in a end. So, tumeona. But that did not stop the resistance. Watu wetu walizidi kuresist. The resistance by the Nandi iliendelea against the British. Every other time kulikuwa na hiyo window ya have peaceful negotiations. In one such treaty, peace treaty between the Nandi and the British after the death of Koitalel. You remember the first part of this book when we were analyzing the history of resistance ya coast. Kulikuwa na demands zingine zi make sense.
Outrageous.
Sasa, nataka tuangalie tena ufala ya watu na hizo demands zao. So some of the demands ilikuwa kwa hiyo for that peace treaty, it was December 15, 1905. It is the Capture Peace Treaty. And the first demand, the Nandi must be concentrated in a reserve, which was then under the limitation by the British commander Mwakenya-December. The Nandi must allow the construction of the Kenya-Uganda railway line to pass through their country. Remember the resistance when you put wali sabotage every now and then the construction of Uganda Kenya railway. By January 15th, 1906, force would be used if the Nandi had not moved to the reservation. It's only reserves. So they move out of the fertile land when they were reserves. And all leaders of the resistance must immediately surrender to the British colonial authorities unconditionally. And all weapons must be surrendered. And finally, the British military occupation will continue until the Nandi complied with the peace terms. Of course, ni mofala tu mingi zenye as make sense. Na kama zitumiki sense hizi.
Pia hazikuwa making sense.
Pia hazikuwa making sense hiyo time. Zikata. So the resistance continued.
Yes, resistance continued. Boss, I know we've read this book, but every time I read the outrageous demands, it always like, oh my gosh, the audacity.
And the consistency.
Yeah,
outrageous.
Like these people had a clear plan. This is what we are going to do.
Yes.
So, of course, the Nandi leadership rejected all of these demands. Ilizi reject. And they continued using the same tactics that wamekuwa wakitumia. Sasa hapa walitumia scorched earth policy. Allow me to read.
Yes.
The historical records of this third confrontation, oral and written, reveal an orgy of burning and destruction of homes, granaries and villages, confiscation of livestock, and savage mass murder. The Nandi fighters fought with remarkable tenacity, stubbornness, and persistence, but they were finally defeated and coerced to surrender and to accept without conditions the terms of the Capture Peace Treaty. So again, it's almost like we are telling the story of the Giriama people. Yeah. It's almost like we are telling the story of this is what happened to our people time and time again. Every other tribe, mlipatwa, mkaduiwa noma, mkaresist, mkakuwa conquered. Again, in 1905, fierce battles again took place. These people did not give up. Like, it was very hard to accept that mmenyang'anywa land yenu, alafu sisi wa Afrika hiyo kitu ya ancestral. I think ilikuwa so deep sana at the time. Ilikuwa na impact that we refused to be driven away from our ancestral land. So when they killed Koitalel, son wake pia come up.
Yeah.
Now I don't think we talk enough about him, but he alicontinue na ile resistance yenye budake alikuwa ameput up na alipea mabrito time ngumu sana kwa sababu alikuwa just as genius, just as brave, just as extraordinary.
How I wish watoto wa revolutionaries onge maintain the same line. Tuko na watoto na family za very revolutionary figures kwa history. But wengine wao tunashindongo rada yao ni gani. So hii ni fiti sana mtoi wa Koitalel na alikuwa anaitwa Paserion Arap Samoei.
Yes.
Continued with the resistance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Arap Samoei had continued his father's tradition of uncompromising resistance to foreign domination and oppression. He tirelessly worked to forge political unity between the Nandi and the related Kalenjin peoples in the 1950s. He established contact with Mau Mau guerrillas. Huyo alikuwa progressive.
Anza kuingia.
He started oathing and training parallel Nandi guerrilla units. He was arrested and detained in Mfangano Island in Nyanza from 1957 to 1962. just a year before independence. Mwasu alikuwa mzee. Huwa alikuwa mnoma. Wewe imagine tu ameenda hadi amekutana kina Kemathi like sisi tuungane to form guerrilla. I think it's because he understood this is not a war against the Nandi people.
Yeah.
This is a war against our country people.
Yes.
Ni war yetu sisi wote kama. And by the way, I always think to myself, what if all the tribes actually formed one big army against the British? Na ujanja yao yote. Tumeona Tetu warriors wakidigizwa hizo trenches. Tumeona Nandi warriors wakiform the small guerrilla units. Everybody bring their tactic. Yeah. And even though their weapons are superior, in country yetu, determination yenye tuko nayo ku remain free ni higher than determination yenye wako nayo kutukonka. Yeah. So I think we would be telling a different story now.
Sasa zingine hii narrative inakuanga problematic, especially nimeona watu wakiongelea Mau. That's why we are doing a series of resistance, because it can look like it's one nationality.
Yeah, no.
Fighting
every tribe in Kenya fought.
So yeah, every community imekuwa involved.
Every community.
To the struggle.
By the way, wasiwezi sema ati ni Wasapere peke wali fight. Yeah. Walami walikamkolandi ya Wasapere peke. Everywhere they went, they met with resistance. So everybody fought. And years later, everybody is paying. Vile tulikuwa conquered as a people. Yeah. Everybody is paying for the defeat. Yeah. So we cannot base it on one ethnic community. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but there are those kuna hizo interpretations.
Yeah.
Just to downplay the history of resistance, the proud history of resistance. Yeah.
So as we conclude this episode on the Rift Valley region, I'd like to read one paragraph. Most of this beautiful and fertile land was alienated and then divided among the British. The Delamere family took the lion's share, and that they still have to this day. However, that is not all. The district of Laikipia is still occupied by the British settlers, guarded by the British armed forces, in league with the Kenyan neocolonial state. Tulisema we are in a neocolonial state. Neocolonial state inamaanisha masoja wetu wana support hii story. Yeah, wana support British settlers bado wako hapo na wanawapea protection. Like in South Africa, in Namibia, the white settlers in Kenya control the food processing industry, flour, tea and coffee industries, and continue to exploit Kenyan agricultural workers, humiliating them and paying them slave wages. They also continue to own huge tracts of land, huge ranches of land, wild animals, forests, lakes, and rivers. In addition, the British soldiers whose base in Nanyuki kill and rape Kenyan women, but because the Kenyan rulers are puppets of Anglo-American imperialism, the soldiers are not arrested for these heinous crimes. Manze, the struggle continues. It's not Uhuru yet. And this is true. This is true. Go and do your own research. I think, was it this year that ilikuwa kwa news that a woman was raped and killed in Nanyuki?
I think it's this year.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's this year.
Oh my gosh. How many years since the British people came to our land?
Yeah. So hizi vitu zinaendelea.
Hizi vitu zinaendelea.
But the idea is we just give us snippets, and sometimes we tujaribu kudelve deep kwa hizi conversations.
Yeah.
But kama unaweza pata hii kitabu History of Resistance in Kenya by Professor Mwakenya-December, uisome zaidi, wewe uelewe zaidi, zidi kuichambua every different books zenye tutakuwa tukichambua. Most importantly ni uitafute wewe mwenyewe, uisome zaidi.
Yes. I would also like to pose a question to you as a Kenyan person. What does freedom look like, really? What does freedom look like to you individually? Because freedom is for the people of Kenya. What does it look like to you? Food for thought. Thank you so much. We'll see you in our next episode.
Hizi pingu zimenifunga zikanishinda kusonga mbele, nashindwa kanta shinda hapa milele. Nahitaji ukombozi sahi, nahitaji ukombozi